Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 61 of 2025. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at the Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media / the Odds Breakers. This episode is brought to you by Circus Sports. For the biggest football contest in all the land, please visit circusports.com/contest. Get in Circus Survivor for $15 million in guaranteed winnings, and Circa Millions, where you pick 5 teams against the spread every single week for $6 million in total payouts. Also, the Grandissimo, over 22 entries, over its guarantee, $2.2 million so far. We'll see how far that thing goes as well with a $100,000 buyout. But these contests are the best in all the land. Make sure you visit Circus Sports and get with proxy footballcontest.com at footballcontest on Twitter. If you'd like to support the Oddsbreakers and benefit from our premium plays, please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, become a member, pick in for winning cappers to get the premium plays before the line moves. You can also support us on patreon.com. If nothing else, please visit the Oddsbreakers, become a free picks and Telegram subscriber. You can also use promo code football25 to get any of our packages at a massive discount, $100 off any football package, half off any monthly package as well. Well, we have a great show for you today because it's all college football, baby. I'm in some college contests from last weekend. Signed up over at the Westgate, doing a little work with Las Vegas Chris as well as Josh Nunn. And that's going to be our guest. Josh Nunn at Step on a Duck 1 is going to come on the show today and break down some of these wonderful college football matchups Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. What a week of college football. We're going to give out some plays that we made, some premium plays. We're also going to talk about some hodgepodge, some other games, maybe some leans. Maybe we can get to a play. We'll see. But I can't wait to talk to Josh and bring back the old beer bet bangers at the end. If you remember, our last beer bet banger was all 1 seeds to make the Final Four. We hit that at 16-1 during the March Madness. So hopefully these things light up again for us for the year 2025. Our podcast picks, 49, 48, and 1, starting in January 1st. And we're just going year by year. That included mostly college basketball, a little bit of football at the very end. So we're just barely at 50%. Going to be bringing them up a little bit this year. I suppose if you count college football week 0's picks, which were podcast plays, we'd be a little bit higher, but we didn't compile those numbers yet either. But real excited for college football as well as the NFL. Lots of survivors, lots of ATS, lots of pick'ems, and now's the time to get in. We also have Splash Sports going on as well as this season. Go to www.theszn.com/OB and get in 12 contests for $60. And if you're a new subscriber using my promo code /OB, you're going to be able to get $10 off and get 12 contests for $50. So if you're not quite ready for the circuit yet, you can always get in those contests. I'm going to have an entry in those contests as well as Splash Football Survivor, where we have revivals, meaning if everybody goes out 1 week, it keeps going on to the next week until there is one winner. I think that's probably the best format for Survivor anyway. So that way, not everybody is splitting a, medium pot. Now, obviously, with Circus Survivor, if you're one of 500 people left, you're still getting some pretty big 5-figure payouts, at least in that situation, if there's about $20 million in it. If 500 people win Circus Survivor, that's still $40,000. I mean, it's not life-changing money or nothing, but it's a couple nice vacations or a hell of a payment on a car, if not buying a car outright. So that's, see how far you can get. But, this is the season for this fun stuff. I have alarms set in my phones to make sure I get these things in. And I think that's very important for you too, so you don't miss. Missing is the worst thing that can happen. Especially with the proxies, once you get your contest entry in, you can't change it. Some sites allow you to change it until a certain deadline. And if I would recommend getting your picks in right away for those and then make your decision later, I'd have a date that, time on your alarm that you're going to be completely sure about it. But you also want to get your picks in at the latest time possible for these contests so you can get the latest injury news and things that might change the course of the whole game itself. Maybe a quarterback goes out or something like that. That's pretty serious. And that has happened plenty of times in Circa Millions and obviously in Circa Survivor. So something you definitely want to pay attention to is having that alarm on your phone with about a half an hour left before entry deadline, to get those picks in. So here we are. It's college football time, and we are going to bring in our wonderful guest, Mr. Joshua Nunn at Step on a Duck 1 from the Action Network.
This segment is sponsored by Liqueur gummies that prevent hangovers. You guys like to drink? Well, I certainly do, but I don't like the hangovers. Liqueur gummies combine DHM, milk thistle, B vitamins, and ginger root to help your body recover after drinking. They fight fatigue, nausea, and dehydration so you wake up feeling refreshed. Try them for faster recovery. Enjoy an exclusive discount with my promo code ODDS. 20% off any product at Liqueur drinking gummies that get rid of your hangovers. Visit this podcast description or go to liquure.com. Use the promo code ODDS.
Now I am very excited to welcome back an amazing college football capper and great friend of the show, and Josh Nunn from the Action Network. You can follow Josh on Twitter at StepOnADuck1. Josh, thanks for coming back to talk some college football. We're finally here, my man. We started talking about this what was it, May? Like way back in May? Or was it before? Something like that.
Yeah, it's been way too long. I'll tell you right now that you and we were connecting off air, which I loved. We've been so ready for this season to get going with all the different stuff we got going on, and now we finally got the pads popping last week. It is just a fantastic time of year, and we put in a lot of prep this summer.
Oh, absolutely, we did. And I'm very excited for this football season from a betting standpoint, but not just from a betting standpoint, Josh, because surprise to all, Josh and I are playing a little contest action here coming up at the Westgate. They had their college contest coming out this week, and I was happened to sign up for a few entries last week, and Josh is going to have full control of one, and I'll have a small piece of that one. I'm going to have full control of one. He'll have a small piece of it, but more importantly, we're going to talk about some of the plays we have made and why we made them on some of those Friday Spaces show, aren't we?
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun to be able to cover some of our contest selections, talk about the reasoning, why we like the play, why it was merited being in the contest. This is going to be a lot of fun on these Friday nights, so you'll want to tune in on Twitter for those.
Absolutely. What's up, Bobby Newport? Thanks for stopping in, and thanks for the kind words, my man. Very excited, such as you are. And it's just this football. I got a little taste of it last week. I was real busy at the Circa, but I was able to watch some of it, and it was more than fantastic to do that, man. Here we are. I have to ask you, what are some of your thoughts from week 0 after what you have seen?
Well, I got 3 thoughts, and 2 of them pertain to what I saw on the field, so I'll save those for last. First thought is, what are the schedule makers doing? We had this 11 o'clock Central Time start over across the pond, which was great, and then you had this voided window where the only game on was streamed on Mountain West Network, and you had 3 games then kick off all about the same time during the evening session, and no late night window. It's like, spread these babies out, give us a real buffet of games one after the next. I felt like they missed an opportunity for that.
Mm-hmm. I do too. I think that they really screwed that up, and a lot of. I don't think the streaming is quite as good for advertisers. What people are starting to figure out. So I don't know why they did that, but great point.
I downgraded UNLV significantly. I was stunned at how out of position their defense was, how inept they were in their pass coverage. I took the over in the game, and we did hit, but I also, part of the cap was that their defense was going to be able to force turnovers, which they did, and get stops, which they really did not get any stops. And Jordan Cook, let me tell you, he was cooking that entire game for Idaho State. They gave up 555 yards, and that does not fix itself overnight. So I was stunned there, and I think Hawaii is in major trouble. If Alejado, he's got high ankle sprain or whatever it might be, that can linger for 5 weeks, and he's going to try to play this week. If he's not a full go, I think Hawaii could be in some big time trouble.
Yeah, big time trouble. I just that line kind of stayed the same ish, this week, and we can talk about that game later. But I'm wondering why he's playing and how. Every time I've had a high ankle sprain, I'm out 3 weeks. That's just screwing around playing with kids in the playground or when I was back to my high school days of football. But it took me out a lot longer than that, and usually my ankle would blow up. Maybe it's just a weak high ankle, but it's fine. You don't call a high ankle sprain a weak one. You just call that an ankle sprain or a low ankle sprain. I find it really interesting why that line didn't move too much. Yeah, man, they got outgained. UNLV got outgained, man, and that was gross. And by Idaho State, it was surprising to me. I knew that thing was going over as it went, and then I had to go to the panel, so I missed some of it. But it was a terrible showing. But a lot of people are fading UNLV now in week 2. Are you part of that?
I'm not part of that necessarily, but I like the game total over. I just feel like we saw Sam Houston State really reveal their cards. They're running a lot of tempo. Their defense is equally as bad. I don't think UNLV's defense will be able to be fixed overnight, and I feel like you have just 2 descending defenses. You're not going to have any home field advantage for Sam Houston State as they play their games in a soccer stadium an hour away from campus this year as their main stadium is getting renovated. So not going to have any home field advantage. I think we'll see plenty of tempo from Sam Houston, and while we might not see as much tempo from UNLV, they'll gain explosive chunk plays. One thing I was really concerned about, and Bobby commented here on the channel about the UNLV team total, man, they missed so many red zone opportunities yet again. Last year, it was just such a problem. 71 red zone trips, only 36 touchdowns, 21 red zone field goals. And I was thinking that would be the focus during the offseason, that they would kind of get those red zone woes fixed, but of course, no, they did not. 3 red zone touchdowns in 7 trips. So I'm hoping at some point that tide starts to turn and UNLV can cash it in for 6. I think Sam Houston will have no problem obliging there. Their defense is very, very bad.
It's very bad, and we did hit the Sam Houston Western Kentucky over pretty comfortably, and Sam Houston could have even scored again if they didn't get stopped at the end of that game. So that was a nice check of one of my premium plays and one of yours that you've given out. God, probably back in June or something like that is when we talked about that.
Well, and you and I knew when to strike when the iron was hot because there were some service plays that were released on the under, and that caused that total to drop below some key numbers. And you and I swooped in at the right moment. Didn't end up mattering, but it was nice to get under those key numbers of 59 when those other service plays were released to the under. I don't know what they were seeing there, but yeah, those Sam Houston and Western Kentucky are both over teams for me all season.
All season long, baby, and make sure you pay attention to that coming on in. The scary thing about people fading UNLV is this is not like a paid up. You see a team look terrible the first week, that's a bad idea just to jump and fade them again because they're getting yelled at by their coaches. There's a lot of reasons why that they're really going to get up for the next game. If you're doing that and just betting your whole life, you're a losing player and the books love you. So I think going for a total rather than a side in these situations is a much better idea. So thank you for bringing that up. Pretty impressed by.
Yeah. And I think too,
go ahead.
I think too, it's helpful for people to realize that teams can improve week to week and they can improve from the very first game of the season all the way to the end. People can you can see teams get better and understand mistakes and learn from it and be in better position with sound coaching. So we'll see some of that from UNLV.
Absolutely. And Kansas looked pretty poised. Coming in, I don't know what to think about Fresno State. I knew that Warner was not going to be a good quarterback from what I saw. So at least not in the beginning. Maybe he gets better throughout the season. I know you're a little bit high on Fresno as they came in, but money came in on Kansas and it took it all the way to 14. And I was at the Circa and I wanted to bet it, but I didn't. I decided not to take it at 14 and it was the right side.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of snowballed on them in the second quarter. They were down 14-7, kind of hanging in there, and then Kansas punches one in. They throw an interception, and you get the field goal before half, and now it's 24-7 at half, and you're kind of feeling out of it. I thought Fresno played to about a C-minus grade. I think they can play a lot better. I think they have to get some things figured out on the offensive line because they couldn't run the football. Third down conversion percentage was woeful, but certainly can build upon that, and it'll be a much different challenge this week at home when they play Georgia Southern. It'll be a less talented defensive team, so maybe a little more success from Fresno State. Maybe we see them use their tight ends a little more.
Absolutely. And Farmageddon wasn't what a lot of people expected because a lot of people bet Kansas State. I was on the other side. I saw that line get up to 4.5 at one point. And I was just like, seriously? This is the type of game that you take the dog in. Two teams that are semi-equal. I think Kansas State's the better team. I have them better still. But, all of a sudden the turnovers come to factor. The team that's disrespected comes in. They're not playing a familiar territory. And the turnovers happen, and that's what makes a misleading box score a little bit is turnovers. It's the most common thing. You see a team getting outgamed and losing and winning, or a team, losing when they outgain them in yards. It's really an important thing to look at, and that's kind of what Kansas State was doing last year.
I was surprised too at how they struggled at times to run the football, and I felt like they could have made more of that. Iowa State really maximized on that opportunity. And, they had that early turnover with the muffed punt and the fortuitous bounce where Iowa State jumped on it. And then Iowa State turns it back over. It was kind of hot potato in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
But, Iowa State really made the plays that they needed to make. Late stages of the third quarter and with the game in the balance with about 9 minutes to go. And they looked like a very buttoned-up football team in that second half.
Absolutely. I agree. All right. Well, let's move on to what's important, and that's our future. The future of these games. We have a bunch of Thursday games. I think this is the most I've ever seen on a Thursday, and I totally forgot about it. I was like, okay, we got this contest coming up. Yeah, maybe we'll get their picks on Friday around noon, and I'm like, holy cow, wait a second. Most of these games are Thursday, Friday, and there's a lot on Saturday too, but there's a lot of FCS games that are involved in some of these contests, and most of the time, these contests are just FBS versus FBS. And it's going to be fun to talk about this. But hey, you gave me 3 games that you want to talk about, possibly a play in those. I gave you 3 games that I want to talk about. I'm going to go in chronological order. And guess who picked the very first game of college football on Thursday? My man, Step on a Duck. Right now, Boise State is -5.5 on the road at South Florida. Money's been coming in on South Florida all summer long. Now it's down to 5.5, and we have a high total of 62.5 in the heat. What's up, Duck? What do you think about this one?
Well, I was part of the summer movement as I took South Florida plus 8.5 during the summer. I think schematically, South Florida has some advantages here when they have the football. Boise State's calling card on defense last year was their defensive havoc created in their pressure. They were tops in FBS with 55 sacks and 111 tackles for loss last season. Many of their sack dudes, Hassanin, Oladipo, they had several other guys with at least 3 sacks are all gone. And now Boise, with a lot of personnel transfers from the D-line that come in from Idaho, Hawaii. They have 2 unproven guys from Arizona who don't have a lot of snaps under their belt. And I think the way that USF can attack this is they align their wide receivers very wide in the splits, outside the numbers. It forces those corners to go out there and align with the receivers. It makes it really tricky for Boise State to disguise their coverages and disguise where they're going to be sending the blitz. So this should simplify things for Byron Brown, be able to identify the box easier, maybe identify some pre-snap coverages, make the right reads if we're running the RPO game or if he's going to be running the ball himself. And I think that they will be able to attack Boise State, who was very susceptible on defense in surrendering explosives, 128th in FBS last year in defensive explosiveness surrendered. And South Florida should be able to take advantage as they are a big play offense. I could definitely see them having some significant success. We look defensively at the Bulls, and they actually did a decent job last season against the run at times. We might see less pop in the run game from Boise State now that Ashton Genty is no longer there. I think Sire Gaines is a solid number 2. But we're going to see more put on the shoulders of Maddox Madsen. And I just don't know necessarily if that's a good thing. Everyone will look at the 3,000 yards and 23 touchdowns that he put up, but there was also 7 big-time throws to 13 turnover-worthy plays. And I just feel like when you get into these, when you're playing situational football, third down, you got to have it. 3rd and 7, we're in the red zone. They were so used to just flipping the ball to number 2 and letting him go. And now the receivers have to step up. More pressure gets put on Maddox Madsen. You're in the Florida heat. Guys are sweating. They're thirsty. It's just, how's this going to go this first game out of the chute? I just don't know that they'll be humming on all cylinders. I still think Boise State could be a really solid group of 5 team and still possibly be the G5 representation in the playoff with a loss. But man, this is absolute desperation mode here for South Florida with who they have coming down the pipe. They have got to ratchet the urgency up.
Yeah, absolutely, man. South Florida has to step it up here. And, last year, I do look at their defense. They were 56th in defensive EPA. I mean, that's actually above average, and you're talking about 70 Power 5 schools, right, or Power 4 schools. So it makes a little bit of sense there. Looks like Bobby set up a couple 6s just popped up, so that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I was a little late to the party here too. And right now, it's just not a power ratings play for me. I'm going to be very interested in seeing it. But Duck, I will ask you: is this going to be a contest play on your side?
I don't know. It depends. We haven't seen those contest lines yet, and I'm sure they're dynamic, and we'll get no stale lines. So if we get 6.5 or better, then probably so. At 5 or 5.5, I might have to consider what else is out there.
Yes, absolutely. You got to always consider that. And Bobby bringing up how bad Boise did without Genty last year, but you have to remember that Boise got a great transfer in a running back this year, and I'm not worried about that so much with some of their players, and Sire Gaines is going to be fantastic. I know he's probably going to take over completely the starting role. Malik Sherrod is there as well, but I think Sire Gaines, he's going to be also a fantastic player as well. I think it was Sherrod that actually transferred, so I might have said that wrong. Let's look at the next game then. I think, well, we have another Thursday game, right? We have Buffalo versus Minnesota. And this was another one that Duck and I talked about earlier this season, but I see the spread is now back to 17.5 points. Some money did come on in Minnesota with a total of 43.5. Ducky, would you like to take this first?
Yeah, so we jumped in at some 18.5 earlier in the summer. It got down as low as 14.5. That line has come back up after some large service play releases on Minnesota. I doubled back for some more 18.5. If we're at least 17 or more in the contest, this will absolutely be a play. We've got a kind of a system trend here where you've got a big underdog of at least 7 points and a low total. And those underdogs over the course of time have performed at about 57% over 20 years and 700 plays of data. So when those totals are lower than 45 or 46 and you have that dog of 7 to 18, you generally see that dog performs pretty well in these situations. But for me, Buffalo's a year ahead of schedule with Pete Lembo in the rebuild. They have some major talent returning on defense. This is going to be a very, very astute defense by MAC standards, and they'll hang in there against Minnesota. Red Murdoch comes back. He was the number 2 tackler in FBS last season. We've got 2 major sack dudes coming back on the edge for Buffalo with Kobe Stewart and Deion Crawford. One thing that we see from a scheduling standpoint with MAC teams is oftentimes they'll have to fold their tent early in these games because they just get beat up so badly in non-conference play. They almost always play 3 Power 4 foes, oftentimes 2 or 3 Big Ten teams. But this is the only one this year for Buffalo. They're not going to get beat up in the non-conference here. So I think they go in there, they take a swing. Minnesota has lost their defensive coordinator and several position coaches on defense, so you're going to have some new voices there. A new system with this new Havoc-style defense could just take a little bit of time here to get everything humming. I think Buffalo will have a little more punch in the passing game this year, as last year McMillan was hurt, and that allowed Victor Snow to emerge. Now they're both back, and we get Trey Roberson, who comes in at quarterback. So I think Buffalo is going to be sneaky dangerous this season. They're my pick to win the Mid-American Conference, and I think they go in there and give Minnesota everything they can handle.
And Trey Roberson is experienced. He played at UConn for a full season, threw for over 2,000 yards. Then he transferred to Penn State, didn't get an opportunity, and then he went to K-State, which didn't get an opportunity because there just wasn't injuries. Now he kind of comes in as a senior and knows what he's doing here. While, Minnesota, they're sitting on a redshirt freshman quarterback and Drake Lindsey. I think that's a tell. Row the boat. He is not the kind of guy that will care about running up the score. He just wants to run the ball and get the game over with, right? I mean, this could be a 17-point game. This could be a 14-point game. This could be a game where Buffalo's actually in it because Buffalo's got the best defense returning from the MAC. And you have to remember, they finished winning, 4, 5, something like that, games in a row. They've been waiting for this. This is their Super Bowl here to go into Minnesota and beat them. I really liked 17.5, and this is also going to be a contest play for me, Duck. So I am extremely excited on jumping on the back here. And, Minnesota, that's not the kind of team you want to lay 17.5 points with. They are not a power, top 10 team. They are just happy to win this game. And there's a few other ones that we'll get to when we get to Hodgepodge here. Bobby played it at plus 18.5 on Sunday night. Way to go, Bobby. Way to get that line moved back. I didn't think that thing was coming back, but here we are. These releases against these, I don't know who's running these things, but they've been wrong so far in these conglomerates when it comes to week 0. Let's move on to the next game. This is the game I picked, Wyoming versus Akron. And Akron is sitting there at plus 6.5 with a total of 48.5. This one stuck out to me a little bit, Duck, and it was a later play for me, but I just don't understand why the hell Wyoming is going on the road to any FBS team and laying points like this. This Wyoming team was terrible last year. They won 2 or 3 games. I know this is a hold your nose type play, but man, I would say at least Akron's returning some of their good players. A lot of them, they're both returning quarterbacks, but coaching advantage here is Jay Sawville really going to have a coaching advantage over Joe Moorhead? No. They're coming from the West here. If you look at last year, the Zips were actually the better team. They had a 0.75 net yard per play advantage. 0.75, 3/4 of a yard per play over the Pokes. And it's not like the Pokes played a Power 5, schedule. They had ASU in the beginning. I do remember that. But they also had better EPA numbers both on offense and defense. I love how Akron finished their season. 2 wins. One was against Toledo, if you remember. So they ended up getting that game against Toledo. I don't like the Mountain West in general. I kind of rate them with the MAC. Everyone hates the MAC over the years. I think the Mountain West minus Boise State is terrible, and you don't need any bigger of a sample size than to watch Fresno State and UNLV just last week. I'm taking the dog here. I'm taking Akron plus 6.5 at home, plus 1.5, and I can see this to be a contest play as well.
Yeah, what I hope then is that Akron can get out ahead because last year Akron was able to rely so intently on their defensive front 7, Antavius Fish, CJ Nunnally, players like that were really, really solid, plugging holes against the run, able to provide some pass coverage. And you've got some of the talent defensively for Akron that steps down. So I hope they can get a lead early and kind of hang on to it. And, they're at home. This is one that they have to be thinking they have to win. There's no bowl game for Akron this year, so maybe every game's their Super Bowl this year.
Absolutely. When there's no bowl game, it's not like these kids care about the Bulls right now. They care about their first game. They care about transferring to Ohio State or something. They want to get in there and show them what they got. Bowl game, schmo game, it doesn't matter. They're going to come out at home and try to protect their home court, home field. So Auburn versus Baylor is the next one I picked. And it's just kind of fallen into place for me, my friend. Baylor's plus 2.5. The total on this is 57.5. Auburn had some really good numbers last year, and that's why you're seeing them as a road chalk against one of the top teams in the Big 12. And here's the thing, Josh, I didn't bet this now yet. I'm waiting to bet this because this is going to go to 3. I think more SEC money comes in. Everyone rants and raves about how the SEC gets the talent, but they also forget about the state of Texas because Baylor's right in the state of Texas, and there's a lot of mid dudes that grow later. They grow their freshman year of college. They grow their sophomore year of college. I didn't stop growing in my sophomore year in college, and they just become better and better. Maybe they were 2 or 3 stars back then, but Baylor doesn't recruit that bad at all with Dave Aranda down there. They return a ton of guys. Number 9 in returning production. It's huge, especially when it comes to quarterback Sawyer Robertson that's back. I like him. He was fifth in QBR last year. I looked at the QBR numbers. I'm like, really? Sawyer Robinson, fifth in QBR? That's a pretty interesting stat right there. I thought they were the best team in the Big 12 last year. Jake Spavital, man. I thought he would get hired somewhere. And, dude, the fact that he's returning to this Baylor team is massive. They had so many close losses, I should say, when it was that Hail Mary pass against Colorado. They should have won that game. Auburn returns a lot as well, ranking 21st in return in production. But whenever they stepped up against a ranked team last year, they got smoked. Jackson Arnold comes in from the portal to replace Peyton Thorne. And I don't think Arnold was all that good in Oklahoma. I know he had some wide receiver bad luck in Oklahoma, but Jackson Arnold, nah, he doesn't do it for me. I'm going to wait for a 3 to pop, and I'll be all over it. Baylor +3. And, if 3 doesn't pop, I'll tweet out that I will take the 2.5. But I think a 3, possibly even a 3.5 will pop.
I was stunned at how short up Baylor's offense looks. These guys are going to be humming in the second year in the Jake Spavital system. They look ready to go. The offense totally took flight after Sawyer Robertson was given the command of the offense after Daquan Finn went down with injury. We've got the running backs that are looking like they're about 3 or 4 deep. Now, they did have a guy that got hurt in fall camp and is going to miss the season, but I really think it's next man up after Pendergrass got hurt. The receivers, my goodness, you've got Josh Cameron and Ashton Hawkins that come back. Cole Wilson's a great ad from Texas State. Kobe Prentice comes in from Alabama. You've got Lewis Brown IV from Colorado State. These guys are just absolutely loaded at the position. The offensive line looks shored up and ready to go. They got a guy to transfer in at left tackle, which was really their hole. I think Baylor's going to be an offensive output of 40 points a game. And I think you can pass on this Auburn secondary. They had some guys transfer out late at the end of the season last year, and I think that Auburn can be got in the secondary. I'm not as high on Auburn this year. I think it's more experimental with what they're bringing offensively. I just don't see how this game has moved unless you're just factoring in conference superiority or if people are high on Auburn for a particular reason. But the other thing I'll add in is, Dave Aranda's a defensive guy, and he hasn't really gotten the defense figured out. That was the bugaboo for Baylor last season, as they surrendered a lot of explosives at an untimely point. They couldn't get off the field at times, but Baylor now has some major transfer dudes that came via the portal. Phoenix Jackson is a tremendous linebacker. Marion Winston is wonderful. They got a couple guys on the D line from Tulane that are going to wreak havoc on this league. So I think Baylor looks really short up here. I think this is a fantastic Friday night play. Yeah,
and there's a system to it too. Bobby's like wants to wait till it gets to 3. Yeah, and I don't disagree. You should wait. But this like he says, Kobe Prentice is a great guy too coming on in. And I just think that there's a really good shot that this system play, being the home dog here, and I can't remember. I think it's I'm not sure if it's ranked teams or not. I'm not sure if they're ranked. I'd have to relook at that. But it's usually a winner, and when it comes to the home dog here in this situation, I think it may be across the United States type travel or a certain distance travel. I can't remember what it was.
Well, and I fully expect Baylor to be locked in early because they don't have time to just ease into their slate. After this one, they go on the road to SMU, and then they host Arizona State in week 4. It's like you cannot be 1-3 getting into the meat and potatoes of your schedule. It's got to be heightened awareness, sharp, crisp from the jump. If I'm Baylor, that's how I'm approaching it. Is the season starts now on snap 1. We got to be ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think that they're going to start off hot right now. And I love the play. Let's move on to the next one then. And I think we go back to Josh because he's got an interesting look on New Mexico versus Michigan. And I wrote down Michigan minus 34.5, right under that key number of 35. Well, college blowout key number, total of 49 points. It's pretty high for a Michigan game, but there's a reason for it.
Again, this is a play I made earlier in the summer. Then we saw some steam up to 37.5. We've got some service play movement back down the other way. So I went back for more 34.5. I think that people are scared to lay points with Michigan, but there's a couple of things that I like. I like that they just announced that Bryce Underwood was going to be the starter. He doesn't have a lot of experience And so I could see him playing deep into the game to get some valuable reps because of who they have on deck. We've got significant talent for Michigan at the running back and receiver position. And my goodness, just go look at the tight end room for Michigan. Those guys go 4 deep, 6'5" or 6'6", 250 athletic tight ends. They can help support the run blocking, and they can go out and pass receive. How in the world is New Mexico covering that? It's just such a safety valve for the young QB to be able to have that in his arsenal. Then the question for Michigan is along the offensive line. That's not going to rear its ugly head here. New Mexico defensively was one of the worst in the last 10 years at FBS. 50% surrendered on third down, 11 total sacks secured, 45 scores and 48 red zone possessions, and they allowed 65% completions with 30 touchdown passes against for the entirety of the season. And when they played up in competition, Wazoo, Auburn, Arizona, they allowed over 7 yards per carry against those teams on the ground. I can tell you right now one other thing too. So everything we saw about New Mexico offensively with the exquisite play of Devon Dampier, well, he plays for Utah now. They only gave up 5 sacks on the offensive line, but if it was anyone else back there at quarterback, it would have been 45 sacks. And that's what it's going to be this year. I believe firmly that New Mexico is going to struggle to score, and they're going to struggle to even achieve 10 first downs. It's not going to go well for the Lobos here. They're not going to be able to sustain drives. It'll be quick 3 and outs. The punting game is going to be bad for them. Short fields for Michigan, a bunch of scores. I think they put up 49 minimum.
Let's remember that Michigan might go a bit faster too, which is even better, especially when we have a great defense. They were one of the slowest last year, 31.3 seconds in between snaps. But with Chip Lindsey, coming in here, I expect a heck of a lot more speed, which gives you time to cover spreads like this. And New Mexico ain't slowing anything down. They're going to play their game, and then it's just going to get really ugly and spin out of control. Is Michigan a top 10 team? Probably not. But if you look at the numbers, top 10 teams on a spread of, I believe, 36 or more for week 1 are smoking it. And it's like a 15-1 clip that they are hitting that. I think finally Ohio State only won by like a 48-point spread. They won by 46 last year and bit that trend. But this is a great trend to look at. And then so you look at the teams like Penn State, who's a 44-point favorite, and a few other ones. And I count Michigan as kind of something in this demeanor. So I'm not with you on this yet. But now that I saw it drop, Josh, I could see that. I could see a bit like that. It looks like 45-7. That's a fair. That's also over. 45-7 would go over, and that's why I'm scared to bet the under in this game. I was actually looking more over because I think Michigan can score 50 points by themselves simply in this game, and I have 100% agreement with you. So not a lot of disagreement yet. We'll see if we can get to anything we disagree on. Our final play looks like we picked all plays for you guys, so that's great. Mississippi State versus Southern Miss. Southern Miss plus 13.5 total. They're 61.5. Another situation where it goes down throughout the summer and goes back up. I think we're just picking all those, Josh. I don't know how, but a service did release Mississippi State, and just because they're based on their power ratings a lot, which I don't really agree with. I think that people just do not know how much to move their power ratings. And I'll tell you this, when the Bulldogs scheduled the Golden Eagles, Josh, I bet you they didn't know that Charlie Huff was going to be coaching over there. And I also bet they didn't know that they'd be coming from a championship game, bringing in 18 transfers from Marshall. It's a championship team. Yeah, they were a little fraudulent last year. They won a lot of one-score games, but they still won them, and they scored the points when they needed. I mean, if you're capping this game using stats from the Golden Eagles last year, you're completely doing it wrong. You got to look at what Marshall did. Now, don't get me wrong. I know Mississippi State was embarrassed last year, and they're going to want a better showing too, but they're going to the Golden Eagles. They're going to Southern Miss. You look at the spread, you think, oh my God, they're playing in Mississippi State, but it's quite the opposite here. So flip that thing by 6 points, right? Blake Shapen, he wasn't great before he got hurt, in that 4th game. They lost to Toledo, I mean, it's not like he was lighting it up. I was shocked that when I first looked at this, thinking this game was in Starkville. It's like, seriously? I took Southern Miss, and the number I did get was 13.5, and it's right back there, so I might actually have to press that a little bit, Doug. Hey, folks, big opportunity here. The Odds Breakers has partnered with the Optimus Prime crypto options trading platform and the Apex Alliance Club. How it works is that the Apex Alliance Club runs an AI-based algorithm that guarantees the trades that they give you. And that's how you get such a big income right away. And throughout the first 2 months, you can literally double your money. The greatest thing about this opportunity is it's completely safe. They give you $1,000 just to try it out. Once you make some profit, they take it back and you decide to make your first investment. Make sure you get some info on this by emailing us at info@theoddsbreakers.com. The Apex Alliance Club and the Optimus Prime crypto trading platform is a Coinbase and a Crypto.com friendly company.
Will be a fascinating one for me. It's one I haven't made a personal play on, but the talent infusion for Southern Miss is staggering. They were certainly penalized on the conference futures and the regular season wins based on the helmet sticker and not the personnel. I think they'll be really vastly improved here. I'm really interested to see if they can throw up a couple punches with Mississippi State coming in, and it'll be real interesting to see how they play that game. But, I mean, you look at Braylon Braxton last year, 17-2 touchdown to interception ratio, just an electric dynamic player. 19-2 touchdown to interception ratio. They have so much talent that comes in at the skill positions. Defensively, they look shored up and ready to go. I think that they will have every opportunity to make this game close.
Absolutely. I think this could be coming down to the nail biter. It would not shock me to see a complete upset here and a nice money line sprinkle. So keep that in mind. I actually did tweet out a money line parlay that's all dogs that I like. Probably, most likely not to hit, but if I like the side, there could be some value on it. Time for a little hodgepodge, my man. Let's go to Thursday. I mean, Ohio versus Rutgers is the next game. Basically 30 minutes later than Boise State, South Florida. I find Greg Schiano's crew is interesting because they look good for a while. Then Wisconsin comes in and just beats the crap out of them. And Wisconsin was a bad team last year, but then, they shake it off after a few more losses. And then they win against Minnesota. They win at Maryland and then lose it to Illinois, but they did score 31 points against Illinois, and then they lose at Michigan State. The thing about Schiano is this team returns a ton of production. Ohio is the team that kind of got lynched a little bit in the transfer portal. What do you think about this game at the spread of 15.5?
All over Rutgers here. I played it at 13.5. I played it again at 15.5. I think Rutgers is a good bully. They're a team that in this situation generally overperforms. They're 15-4. I think over the last 5 years against the number in the non-conference. And for me, Ohio was just decimated in their defensive front seven. All of that returning production that you could count on defensively that kept Ohio in games. It's a full rebuild on the D-line. Everybody in the linebacker group is new. The secondary can be exposed. And offensively, I know that they've got Bangura back, and they're going to ride him, and they're going to do some quarterback run with Parker Navarro, but you got one offensive lineman that's returning. It's going to take some time to gel, and they are going to struggle here against that defensive line that Rutgers is going to deploy out there. I do not see it going well for Ohio University. This could be a margin call. This could be one where it's a 3-touchdown final, a 4-touchdown final. Rutgers could really run this one open here.
Agreed. And this is a little bit lower than what I expected it to be, especially with the revamp. The Rutgers just has to prove it, but this is kind of where those Marylands, Rutgers, Iowas, and Nebraskas, they come in and beat the crap out of the little guys sometimes just to try to look good because they know they're going to face a Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State type team, Michigan later, right? So,
one other thing I like too about Rutgers is they had some infusion of talent in the portal at the receiver position. DT Sheffield comes in from North Texas, and they had a late add in the summer. Dane Partridge, who was an explosive receiver at Northern Illinois, he's there now as well. So you look at Callie McManus, can he take that next step as a passer? He's going to have plenty of weapons to throw the ball to, which is going to be an added punch that Rutgers has not had.
Yep. I think so too. I think Kalik McManus, I never know how to say his name. He's going to improve this year. Is it Michigan State versus Which one is this one here? Oh no,
Western Michigan.
I was looking at that one. That's not till Friday though. And then Bobby was just commenting on the play I had. So he says 13.5 was his number. Yeah, I like that one, Bobby. But we're going to move on to another game. Actually, I don't want to go to Michigan State quite yet. Wisconsin, I got to talk about them a little bit. I'm as a Badger fan. I mean, they're 17.5-point favorites against Miami, Ohio. I don't know about that one. I think Miami, Ohio's reeling a little bit from their loss to Ohio last year in their MAC championship game, and then they smacked Colorado State right in the face in their bowl game pretty bad. Now, this is another team, Miami, Ohio, that doesn't really return anybody, but it's also Wisconsin coming in with a new offensive coordinator that runs the ball, as we all know, and Luke Fickell, man, it hasn't been pretty for him. Wisconsin was kind of decimated in the transfer portal, especially when Will Pauling moving to Notre Dame. That was really tough. I thought Braden Locke leaving was great, though. I couldn't stand him. I actually do believe that Billy Edwards is a little bit bigger of a quarterback. I'm only bringing this up because my numbers say I lean Miami, Ohio at 17.5. I think Wisconsin wants to be a bully in this game. They have some pretty decent running backs, but Wisconsin also has some injuries now to their tight ends. And so they're going to be bringing on a really young tight end in this game. Yeah, I mean, actually my number 17. So I wanted to bring this game up because I could see people being on Miami of Ohio, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get there. What about you, Doug?
I was kind of hoping Miami of Ohio would be a trendy dog, so this number would come back down the other way. I think they are going to struggle so badly in this environment. 0 returning starters on offense. I know they get Daquan Finn back, and he'll be an electric player, but he cannot do it all himself. And I think they're really going to struggle to move the ball here. I think they're going to struggle to communicate. I think Wisconsin will be able to get whatever they want on the ground. There was so much production lost on the defensive front seven for Miami of Ohio, and the heart and soul of their defense, Salopek, is no longer there. I just think this is going to be a spot for Miami where they're in over their heads. And if you look at some of the players that they also lost via the portal, I mean, Ivan Pace is gone. We've got Salopek, who I mentioned, who graduated. Downing, the running back, is gone. We've got Keon Mosey, who's gone. They lose Gabbert. They return. They get Finn back, but you've got some corners gone. You've got a Savio Frazier from the defensive line and Ugwu from the defensive line. Were both solid contributors there that are both gone. This is going to be a mess. I can see a situation here where, I mean, Fickell needs to put an ass whooping on somebody badly because he's got to get the seat a little bit less warm. They need to start to exercise some demons offensively because it's been a struggle while he's been under their watch. The offense has been a struggle. I could see this one where there's motivation to put up a big number and pour it on. And Miami of Ohio under Chuck Martin, they have had a history of folding their tent early. They don't really care and put too much stock in the non-conference. Routinely, they'll go 1-3 in the non-con and then regroup before MAC play. I could see them folding the tent early here, especially if we see 14-0 first quarter, 17-0 first quarter. I could see them getting those guys out of there and avoiding injury.
Right. Dylan Jones is banged up for the Wisconsin as a running back, and they have a couple tight ends being out. Yeah, great points. I think there's just so much variance in this game that I'm probably going to stay away from it myself and just try to watch it as a fan and just kind of see what Fickell's embarrassed ass looks like because, he was embarrassed, and this team has to do a lot better with Jeff Grimes now as offensive coordinator. Jeff Grimes, not the greatest year last year where he was at is Kansas. At Baylor, he didn't look super. I think 1 year he looked okay at Baylor, and then they kind of lost their quarterbacks, if you remember, and then it kind of got tough for him. He's had success at LSU, though, before, and a little bit at BYU. So, one of those situations where let's see if you can get back to that hippo package and pound the ball and just run it down people's throat and have a defense that just stops people. This could be a 23-3 game. It could be 23-3, 23-6. It's really tough for me to get to the window on this one. Is there any other Thursday games that look interesting to you?
This is kind of in the weeds a bit, but San Diego State hosts Stony Brook. Stony Brook loses a ton of production on their defense from last season. They had a major program turnaround. They were winless in 2023. They won 8 games last year. San Diego State, I think in the second year of the Sean Lewis flash fast offense, they finally have an athletic quarterback. They've got some dudes in the running back room. I think they're going to pour it on Stony Brook. I'd lay up to 20.5 here.
18.5 right now at DraftKings. Let's move on to Friday. A little hodgepodge on Friday. Western Michigan at Michigan State. Michigan State minus 21, total 49.5. Dude, Michigan State laying 21.5. I mean, Western Michigan is supposed to be an improved team from last year. Michigan State, they've got recruits in the past, but man, I have a tough time trusting them. You know, they're really under the radar this year. Wouldn't you kind of say that Michigan State's probably talked about the least that they've ever been talked about coming into the season here? Obviously, Jonathan Smith has been a great coach when he was at Oregon now. They do have a couple transfers coming in. Aiden Childs is going to be their quarterback. Is Western Michigan going to drop this by 21?
You know, Western Michigan last year, they just kind of got exposed for what they really were late in the season. They really struggled defensively against Bowling Green, Northern Illinois. And once the weather turned, the offense really wasn't as potent. I think what really sticks out for everybody was that Western Michigan game where it was 7-7 at the half with Wisconsin. And they were in they were in Camp Randall giving them a game. And kind of underwhelming outside of that for the totality of the season. They beat up on Ball State and Akron and Bethune-Cookman, but I wasn't super impressed. I love the coach. I think Lance Taylor is a good coach, but I don't know how Western Michigan's going to be this year with what they lost specifically defensively, and they lose both their stud running backs. I think that it just might be a little bit of a struggle. Who's going to emerge at quarterback? Who's going to grab the reins here? If anything happens with Jalen Buckley and if he goes down with injury, you're looking at three other guys that have never taken a snap. So it could go sideways early. With that said, how many times have we seen Michigan State football just completely content winning a game 28-10?
Yeah, right. It happens all the time. My number's 19.5, and I could see a backdoor to mess me up in this one. I'm staying away from it. You know, it's funny. You got Georgia Tech over Colorado on Friday. Georgia Tech's all the way up to 4.5. We could have had them as dogs if we took them in the beginning. I don't know if you're part of that money. It was like +1, though. You know, I was talking to Brad Powers about it, and he was part of that movement there. And you know, it's interesting. It's going to be on at the same time that Baylor and Auburn kicks, and I am high on Georgia Tech from a season win total, but it's just not a betting spot for me. Taking road chalk across the country, even though Colorado is supposed to suck, Deion's been distracted with his own son, and I really like Georgia Tech, but it's just not the kind of bet that I make, man.
You know, it's not really the kind of bet that I make. Although I indirectly made this kind of bet when I took Colorado's win total under, there's a lot of turbulence, a lot of distraction. Both of Deion's sons are no longer there. We've had his health issues in the off season. It's been a little quiet, which is unusual for that program. Where I'm really concerned with Colorado is there were long stretches last season where they completely abandoned the run. They only ran for about 2.5 yards per carry, and I think it was something like 65 or 68 yards per game as a team. And they surrendered so many sacks last year. They just won football games in an unconventional and unsustainable fashion, relying on the heroic effort of Shedeur Sanders. And you know what? Tip my cap. He was exquisite last year at times, but he's not on the team anymore. Right. And to go in and ask now Caden Salter to do that and to not set him up with the run game and an offensive line that's completely piecemealed together with transfers from Jackson State, Memphis, Louisiana Tech. I'm out on Colorado. They don't run the football. They don't win games in conventional fashion. Throughout the entirety of their season, when they need 4th and inches in the fourth quarter with 3 minutes to go, they can't get it on the ground. They don't trust their guys. They don't want to be that type of football team that, you mentioned the Rhino package. They don't have a Rhino package.
No.
They and let the quarterback run around back there and hopefully try to get it, stick the ball out stick the ball out beyond the first down marker and try and get it that way. And that's not sustainable. And I don't think it'll be sustainable against Georgia Tech.
All right.
If I was forced now, I would take Georgia Tech. I would.
I still would take Georgia Tech if I had to. And I have to run and get a battery for my mouse. So why don't you take this one right here? How about, let's go big. Alabama versus Florida State. Let's do it. Alabama versus Florida State. Huge game on Saturday. Plus 13.5. Florida State home dog. We got a total of 50.5. Well, I'll be right back. You run with this one.
Yeah, Florida State's an interesting case. They were so bad last season, and now they turn to Thomas Castellanos at quarterback for Florida State. And I just don't necessarily know if Florida State offensively is going to be set up for success to move the football against Alabama. I think Alabama is a very, very talented defensive football team with all the returning production and the personnel that they have coming back. You're going to line up, and you're going to have to run the ball in order for them to have success because Thomas Castellanos is not a very superior passer. We saw it during his tenure at Boston College, but man, when you look at the edge rushers that Alabama's going to line up at, and then you got to go face those linebackers, Deontay Lawson and Jamarian Latham, it's just not going to go very well. And if I'm Florida State and I have to abandon the run and I have to depend on Tommy C to throw the ball, I could see this going sideways quickly. The other interesting element about this one is that there is going to be possibly a little weather that's going to be seen in Tallahassee. Might get a little rain, could be a wet football. I just don't know necessarily if I want to just buy into Florida State really having improved their roster top to bottom. They get some guys in the portal like Squirrel White at receiver and Deuce Robinson from USC, who could be a little bit better, but Kiev, I'm here to tell you, I don't know about Florida State. I don't know if their roster has been improved top to bottom, and I don't think they're going to be able to run the football against Alabama's front seven, who I think is very talented. And so now you're going to ask Tommy C to have to throw the ball and depend on his arm in order to go out there and keep this game competitive. I don't see it.
Yeah, I think that this could be just one where Alabama comes in and whips. I'm hearing great things about their quarterback, Simpson, and obviously there's a lot of quietness about Ryan Williams, and you might hear me say Ryan Williams a little bit later in the show. We have a few minutes to still talk a few games. I think that Florida State is still going to get smacked. I think Alabama's talent discrepancy is a lot bigger to Florida State than it used to be. Florida State does not have the right coach, in my opinion. He started out great, but man, ever since he lost those guys and missed the playoffs because he was the odd man out, it's just been devastating for them. I don't see how they can rebuild this quick. And Alabama was better than their record, but that was Jalen Milroe's fault. In my opinion, he kept that team down. He just couldn't read defenses. He'd think about takeoff running. Once he threw an interception, he'd get a little bit shy and just be scared, like I said, and just take off for the sidelines, man. I like Alabama here. I did lay 12.5. It's up to 13.5, and I would lay 13.5, but I wouldn't lay 14. So that's kind of where I'm sitting at on this game. I also kind of like the over because here's my thoughts on this one, Josh. 50.5, 50, you can find them kind of both. If Alabama is losing this spread, it might be because Florida State's actually scoring against them and keeping with it in the over hits. Although there's also a very good opportunity that Alabama wins this 35-7, 35-10, and easily covers this spread. Yet it also doesn't go over. You're going to have to push that bet. But there's also a chance that Bama wins, scores 45 points, and you go over the 50 points because they get 6 or 7. So I just kind of like it's almost like a hedge in a way, yet both of them can hit in a way. It's kind of like a correlated parlay, Duck.
Yeah, I like it. I think I'd probably go Florida State team total under 19.5 or so. I think they'll struggle to move the ball, especially if they can't run the ball, and they're going to have to rely on Thomas Castellanos to throw it.
Sure.
I don't want to line up and have to throw at those corners. But, yeah, I think Alabama's a strong play.
LSU Clemson. It's at 3.5 right now on DraftKings. Total 57.5. Why don't you go first with that one?
Well, there's just so many different things that I think are interesting as part of this game. I think we've got defensive coordinator change for Clemson that I think could really pay dividends for them. And I think we can see Tom Allen coming in and really shoring up the Clemson defense that was susceptible to giving up explosivity in the run game. You saw it several times last year for Clemson. You saw it when the Citadel lined up there and ran the ball right down their throat, and they just absolutely could not stop it. So there's something there. I think LSU, maybe they have a little bit to figure out along the offensive line. I just don't know. I think that at some point, both of these defenses can kind of be had. I trust Klubnik a little bit more to lead the team for the totality of the game. But, the last three Clemson openers have really started slow in their season openers. And I could just kind of see this one being, let's feel each other out. Let's try and see where we're at. It could be punt, punt, punt the first couple possessions. I'd probably lean first half under, and then I'd look to maybe get involved live in game if I can get a total that's low enough, or maybe all hell breaks loose in the second half. But I'm guessing first half under is 29 or so I'd probably go that route.
All right, well, there you go. First half under 29. And real quick, Chris Mack checking in. Bama's got 3 starters out, including Tim Keenan. Yeah, they're just such a reload team. You have guys kind of coming in, and these starters have been out a while. I think one of them is a running back in Miller, too. Not super concerned about that with the team like Bama. I think they're excited to go to Florida State and play this game. Yeah, I think the points that Josh made about the quarterback at Florida State is just good enough for me, too, because I just think he's terrible, and he's way over his skis at this school like this and what they're going to expect. I think the pressure is really, really a lot on Florida State, being that they're at home, too. So I understand what you're saying, man. You've got to look at injuries, but it's early enough in the season for them to keep reloading, and I'm going to be okay with that. All right, so where do we leave off here? Which game you want to get to next? Oh, LSU Clemson. I forgot my rebuttal. I'm taking LSU, and I'm taking plus 3.5, and it was at plus 4 for a little while too. In my opinion, I have to see Clemson just beat an SEC team, because last year they went 0-3 against an SEC team. This is a very in-tune LSU, and I'm not in love with Brian Kelly. I'm not, but Dabo Swinney hasn't exactly been a great coach. He's avoided the transfer portal until finally last year. But Cade Klubnik was lucky in those situations. I watched them play. I watched them get their butts kicked in the playoffs. I watched how fortunate they were against SMU to get up by those 3 scores with just stupidity happening and flags. I just don't think this Clemson team's that great. And I think anytime you're going to see an LSU team like this going against an ACC team, you really got to think about it. An SEC team at plus 3.5, that's, top 10 fringe LSU coming in. Absolutely, I'm going to take this. And to be honest with you, Duck, LSU is bigger on my power ratings than Clemson. Yeah, and I'm okay with that. So that's what I'm taking, and hopefully I'm going to enjoy this one. It looks like Bobby leans Clemson here. That's okay. He did take the Bama minus 13.5 today. So good job, Bobby. I'm liking that one here. All right, let's move on. And we only got a few minutes left. So let's pick one more big game, and we probably should pick the Notre Dame Miami game, because that's the biggest one coming in. And we try to cover mostly bigger games for the audience here in this show. Notre Dame's up to minus 2.5. The total's 49.5. They pick C.J. Carr as the starting quarterback here, and there was a really good competition with Minchie, I hear, from the offseason. But the fact that it lasts so long, it always makes me throw. I think coaches always know, and sometimes they just say it later because they want to pump their guys up. I almost feel like that Notre Dame probably knew this, coming in a little bit. I'm not a big Carson Beck guy. I know Miami's got a great offensive line. It's like top 3, top 4 Wisconsin offensive line. And but at the same time, I just can't. This is a massive coaching mismatch here. I didn't get to the side on Notre Dame yet. I'm going to wait till Sunday and think about it more. Some people say that they think Miami's the side here, but when I look at my power ratings, I do have Notre Dame by 5 or 6 points. So it's a pretty good overlay for me, Duck, in this situation. So Notre Dame's got Love, who's a Heisman candidate, and obviously they're just loaded with running backs. They've got a good offensive line, a great offensive line, an amazing defense. I hate the fact that they're on the road, but we've seen Miami falter at home plenty of times, so that shouldn't scare you off that much. Bobby says if the weather's poor, I like Notre Dame due to that bench play. I agree with you too. I didn't see any weather coming in. I got to look and see if there's an update, but why don't you go ahead with this one, Doug?
Yeah, there is a weather update. So first of all, I think Miami's offense should be significantly less potent this season with the departures of Cam Ward. Xavier Restrepo was just such a reliable outlet in the pass receiving game. Overall, the top 7 pass receivers are gone, and you lose Damian Martinez at running back. Defensively, I think maybe the secondary could improve a little bit, and maybe we get a little pass rush. But I could totally see Notre Dame coming in with a conservative approach and leaning in on that running game. They have such a great running back, and the offensive line play should be superior. The weather, it's going to rain all week in South Florida, and they play a college game there on Saturday afternoon. Howard and Florida A&M play in that stadium Saturday afternoon, and it's going to continue to rain through the night. So maybe we get a little deteriorated field condition, a little slop, a little sloppy footing. I like the under here. I took the under at 50.5, 49.5.
Yeah.
I think we're good all the way down to about 40. Well, 48's a key number. So anything higher than 48, I'm recommending the under. Go first half under. I just think it's going to be sloppy. We're going to see a lot of We're going to see a little field position. I don't think the field goal operations will be reliable. I'm going to bet on the clock here to run out before the points go over.
All right, no, it's fair enough, and it's at 49.5 right now at DraftKings. You can shop that around a little bit. I wonder if the public pushes this up. It's probably not going to happen because they're probably just going to notice the rain. I could see this thing getting down to 47, so if you like it right now, I'd say get on it, and that would be a smarter play. Yeah, Carson Beck's just not my kind of guy. I don't know. I don't see... I think he's more flash than anything and had that backing of Georgia behind him. And I mean, if he was so great, I think he'd still be on Georgia. What's the problem here? It's not like he went out to the draft and of course he had the bad injury in the year and everything, but he could have still went to the draft. Yeah, I'm not a Carson Beck guy. Notre Dame's going to run football, run. The question is, can Miami's defense stop the run? I don't know. I don't think so. They sure as hell didn't do it last year. Why would they do it?
What do you think of this? Cristobal announced he was going to be coaching from the press box rather than being out there with his team on the field.
Awful.
What sort of message does that send?
Freaking awful. I mean, that almost makes you worried that the Notre Dame's going to get the over. Miami team total under, that's also another look that you can see. You can figure that one out pretty quick here. It would be more like Miami 23.5 points, something like that. Maybe 22. I have to look at it. Being, if you're looking at a score of 49 points, it's got to be like 25 to 23.5, something like that. It just depends on kind of where it goes. 26, 24 is 50, right? So you're going to look at a team total around the 23.5, 24 range. If it's 24, it's going to be juiced a little bit to the under. But, that's kind of what we would look at. But that moves us on to the next section we have to get into, and that's beer bet bangers, my man. Any dogs that you like to win outright for some beer money or long shots or anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think top to bottom, Charlotte has a better roster than App State. They're playing in the NFL stadium in Charlotte. I think Charlotte has every chance possible to go in there and make App State struggle offensively. You look at Dowell Loggins, who comes in for App State, and I just don't think they have the personnel at quarterback to kind of run the system that he wants. And we're going to see a really well-coached team. We're going to see a team that operates and looks just like last year's Ohio team with the Tim Alvin coach team. And that entire linebacker room at Ohio came over. So I think they'll be a little bit more improved defensively. Also, I mean, it wouldn't shock me to see Northwestern go down there and throw a major punch with Tulane. I think Northwestern's the better team on the field with what they brought in offensively. So Northwestern and Charlotte, parlay them together for a little beer money.
All right, Northwestern Charlotte. I like Northwestern too. We talked about that this year. I love it, my man. I already gave out Damon Williams for Heisman at 150-1, so it can't be that one. I'm going to give out one more Heisman, and I think that Ryan Williams has a legit shot, and I'm going back to Alabama here, obviously, guys. I think that Ryan Williams has a legit shot. Now he has a competent quarterback, and still Kalen DeBoer, back at coach. But Kalen DeBoer brings in his old offensive coordinator, right, coming on in. And I think that's a massive situation for Alabama. And I think they're going to play a little bit faster. And I think that it's just going to get the ball out to Ryan Williams. Why everyone's on Jeremiah Smith, which I don't disagree with. His number just sucks compared to, a Ryan Williams. And I'm just not sure that Sands all that good of a quarterback yet. I'm not sure Simpson is either, but if that's the case, I'm taking two massive athletes, the two best wide receivers, and I'm just taking the better number on that one. So you remember when Smith won, Deontay Smith from now is on the Eagles, when he won it. He got a lot of yards, and he had a great quarterback behind him, obviously. So that's what we're going with, and that's my beer bet banger, Duck.
I like it. We're so back, man. Season's upon us.
That's right.
24 hours from now, we'll be locked into the television, getting ready to fire up South Florida, Boise, and it is the absolute best time of the year, my friend. We've been talking about. You've been threatening me with a good time for 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely, my man. And Bobby and all the guests here, Chris, thanks for stopping in and talking. Bobby's not too happy that big money came on Charlotte that moved it to 5. It's 5.5 right now at DraftKings, man. So there you have it. We'll see what happens with that offensive line from Alabama, but I think it's going to be good. And Josh, you're awesome. Thanks for coming on. Can you tell our listeners where they can get your great information and media?
Yeah, Action Network is where I'm at. I do the BBOC podcast for the Group of Five. I write articles for the Action Network app. I host the Bet US live show, and I'm very active on Twitter. So if you have any questions about anything, you can always reach out to me. DMs are open, and you and I will be collaborating quite a bit this year with the spaces, with the contest. I'd be happy to come back on here and talk with you anytime, Kiev. So this has been really good. I'm not hard to find.
No, he's very not hard to find. Make sure you check him out. And Duck and I will be there on Fridays as well at Spaces. Kyle Hunter, I'm sure, will be back as well. Make sure you guys check us out on Spaces. Duck, we'll be talking this week.
Circa Million and Circa Survivor are back with a massive $21 million in guaranteed prizes. Circa Million, pick 5 games against the spread each week. 126 ways to win with $6 million guaranteed. Circa Survivor, 1 pick a week, no point spread. Last the longest to win it all. $15 million guaranteed. Enter in Nevada, play from anywhere. $21 million guaranteed. Visit circasports.com for details.
And now it is time for
The Sharp Side of the Force.
Sharp Side of the Force is brought to you by The Season. For the largest and most diverse sports contests in all the land, please visit www.theszn.com/OB for 20% off for new customers. Terms, conditions, and location apply. All right, my friends. Sharp College Football Week 1 as of Wednesday, August 27th. Here are the 5 most prominent side moves and totals moves. Sharp money on Rutgers, minus 10.5 to minus 15.5, hosting Ohio, 64% of the tickets and 77% of the money. Sharp money Akron, plus 8.5 down to plus 5.5, hosting Wyoming, 39% of the tickets and 50% of the money. Sharp money UCF, minus 16.5 to 20.5, hosting Jacksonville State, 69% of the tickets and 76% of the money. Sharp money on Texas A&M, minus 20.5 to 24.5, hosting UTSA, 66% of the tickets and 85% of the money. And sharp money on Georgia Tech, minus 1 to minus 4.5 at Colorado, 74% of the tickets and 92% of the money. There's a lot of line moves, actually, but, these are some bigger ones and some more prominent ones that I wanted to go over, and that's how we're going to do every single week. And here are the 5 sharp totals. Buffalo versus Minnesota, under 45.5 to 43.5, 17% of the tickets and 68% of the money. App State versus Charlotte, under 53.5 to 49.5. 42% of the tickets and 74% of the money. Sharp money on UNLV versus Sam Houston, over 58.5 to 61.5. All that from last week. 41% of the tickets and 85% of the money. Sharp money on FAU versus Maryland, over 57.5 to 61.5. 39% of the tickets and 78% of the money. And sharp money on Texas versus Ohio State, under 50.5 to 47.5. 28% of the tickets and 51% of the money. All right, my friends, to recap like we always do, because we are tracking our podcast plays, Duck is going with South Florida, plus the 5.5, although he's got a way better number they gave out a long time ago. He likes Buffalo plus 17.5. We both like that. I like Akron plus 6.5 at home against Wyoming. I like Baylor when it gets to 3, so we'll call that a 3 unless it's not, and then I'll change it. He likes Michigan minus 34.5 here. I like Southern Miss plus 13.5 in this game. And is there one we're missing? No, I think that covers it. So make sure you guys check those out. I'll be tracking my 3 personal here, which is Southern Miss, which is Baylor, and which is Akron. So those are mine. The Ducks is Buffalo, South Florida, and Michigan. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We'll start with NFL next week. Monday, we're going to do fantasies every day. Wednesday, 1 p.m., live on the YouTube channel. Sometimes it'll be noon if a guest has to make it noon, but usually it's going to be 1 p.m. Then Thursdays are going to be 1 p.m. talking NFL. Wednesday, college football. Thursdays, NFL. Enjoy the rest of your week. Go kick some butt this weekend. Hope you win all your plays. And go get some winning.